Hello, and thanks for joining us for Political Pulse. I'm Randy Aldridge, and this is part 2 of my conversation with the North Carolina Medical Society VP of Advocacy, John Thompson, and Ron Howrigon, the President and CEO of Fulcrum Strategies. Now, our last conversation ended on prior authorization. We talked a lot about it. We covered a lot of ground, but we ended on the actual amount of time, energy, and money it takes physicians, PAs, everyone to actually do all of this. And that's a massive burden for them in their time and effort, but it is also taking a true mental toll on them. And John, you have some very interesting statistics just here in the state of North Carolina about just how bad this can be.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to think about it, but then when you think about what a physician is dealing with, it makes more sense. A physician's dealing with a patient who's got cancer, and that patient's family is surrounding this physician, and hope is a powerful emotion, and they're hoping that this physician is going to save their loved one's life, and he's got or she's got this burden to do no harm, and they prescribe something and it gets PA'd. And multiply that by 20 or 30 or 40 a year, and then you start looking at the stats that demonstrate that roughly 600 physicians a year idealize suicide because of this prior authorization burden. And it's a horrible fact, but when you start looking at it, it starts making sense because you've got someone's life in your hands that you're trying to save. And on top of all that stress, then you got to deal with an insurance company for 2 or 3 months to get that patient treatment.
And I want to say, as a patient in the past, I had cancer, and it's not just the patient. You've got the eyeballs of family members, children, parents, all these loved ones looking at you, and you're the only source of hope they have. Hope is a very powerful emotion. Ron, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I can't imagine what it takes to give somebody that diagnosis and to have a whole family looking to you for the answer, for please save our loved one. And I also can't imagine what it'd be like to, after all of your training, your expertise, to do the right thing and have something come back and say, we're not sure you really need that. We want to talk about this. We want to PA this. I just can't imagine the frustration. And so, yeah, as you see that over and over again, it's no wonder that physicians aren't contemplating suicide, and we've got to do something about it. I saw another survey that said that the majority of physicians today would not recommend medicine as a career for their children. That's really telling, that the folks who are on the front line fighting this battle are saying to their children, nah, don't do this, especially when it's such an incredible profession. So
It is, and rewarding when you do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
I do think that 600 people, these are human beings. Like I heard a quote one time, like one person is a person and 600 is a statistic, but that's 600 living human beings who are thinking about ending their life because they just can't take this anymore. Right. That is an amazing statistic.
And it's not the clinical care. It's not the patient interaction. That's not what's stressing them out. It's this other interaction that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And I just have to say, as just a lay person, I don't understand what's feeding this. This feels greed-driven by companies who aren't just going to say, let people do what they're supposed to do and save lives. I can't imagine what could possibly make this happen. So, John, you've talked about this some, and maybe you can give some insight in.
We've asked the insurance companies to voluntarily take on some of these reformative issues. And it's dangerous for one company to step out. And Ron can get into the details of that. So either they all have to do it voluntarily to set a level playing field, or we have to go into the General Assembly and get them to tell all the insurers to do it together.
And we're at the end of that road. We have voluntary is not happening. So
no, it's not.
Just to be clear, it's time. We're ringing the bell. It's here. We're coming, and there's something that has to be done because you're not stepping up. Is that what I'm saying here?
And the alternative is we just continue to allow it. We continue to have physicians burn out, and we continue to promulgate the physician shortage. So you're right. It's time where it has to be done. They didn't police themselves, and now somebody's going to have to.
Well, let's talk about what we need to do then. Ron, from some outside the medical study, what's the solution? What do we do here?
I think there's another thing. First of all, you have to make it easier. I don't know any physician who wants carte blanche. I should be allowed to do whatever I want to do, even when it's bad care. I don't know a single physician who wants that. They want good care. They don't mind following good clinical criteria. That's how they were trained. You got to make it easier. You got to make it consistent. And the folks who have proven that they know what they're doing, let them do their job. Let doctors be doctors. Why should a neurologist, and I'm just picking a specialty, who hasn't had a prior auth denied, who's proven himself over time and time again, continue to have to jump through that hoop. Just let him practice medicine. He obviously knows what he's doing.
I agree with you. And John, I know you have been busy this year with the Medical Society. You are at the General Assembly almost every day talking about this. For our members, to give us an update on what we're doing.
We have taken a very aggressive approach in the General Assembly this year. We've had over 150 legislative meetings, and we've talked about prior authorization reform extensively. And to the General Assembly's credit, the majority of House members and members of the Senate agree that this is an issue worth discussing and talking about. They've all dealt with prior authorization personally, either themselves or their loved one. So it's not an issue that is hidden. It's kind of out there and it's in the open. I think it's more about how do we solve this in a way so that everybody wins. And again, our physicians are healers. That's their job. They go to medical school with the intent to heal people. And, we have to just project that into the General Assembly, that let them do their job. Let them do what they're good at, and let the General Assembly make the determination through legislation as to what exactly is budget care and what is patient care. And if you don't want to voluntarily do patient care, for X amount of time, because you got to understand there's a time and place for budget care, then I think it's in their purview to tell the insurance companies, well, you're going to have to do it this way.
Well, and there's a line that's been said a long time. Politicians have no place in medical care, in a physician's office. And I think that's important to remember.
Well, not just politicians, but bureaucrats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when you get to these insurance companies, I think you do have people that want to do the right thing. But I think it's just like anything else. There are a lot of people. And again, can you do peer-to-peer review? I don't know. I think it's going to be expensive to do so. But if it was me and I was, under the care of a neurosurgeon, I would damn sure want the person at the insurance company making a decision whether or not I get that treatment to be a neurosurgeon.
Agree. If you're going to cut my head open, I want to make sure everybody who's looking in knows what they're doing. We are working. There's a bill right now that's important.
Yes, House Bill 649 passed the House unanimously, and it is in Senate rules right now. And we're trying to gather the support that's necessary to move it out of Senate rules and maybe get a hearing on it and pass it.
But I hope that all happens. Any last comments, John?
Again, I just want to reiterate that, we recognize that some amount of PA is appropriate. And we also recognize that, there are a lot of things that insurance companies have to deal with that increase costs of healthcare that have nothing to do with prior authorization, that are unnecessary, that patients want. And that's where PA is necessary. But we just want to be able to work with the insurance companies to come up with a solution that's in the best interest for the patient. And if it's in the best interest for the patient, it's going to be in the best interest of the doctor. And I think ultimately in the best interest for the insurance company, if it's about patient care.
Agree. Ron, anything else you want to add to that?
I would echo just that. And if we don't fix this problem, and if we continue to burden physicians with this stuff, we're going to find ourselves without enough physicians to care for us, and that's going to be a really bad day.
I agree. Thank you both so much for talking with me.
you.
And thanks so much for joining us for Political Pulse. I'm Randy Aldridge. You can find a link to the Medical Society's prior authorization efforts and what we're working on is updated quite a bit at the bottom of this story. Again, thanks for joining us for Political Pulse.